fait très très plaisir de voir une salle aussi pleine pour, il est vrai, une vedette qui nous a fait vraiment un immense plaisir en venant ici. Alors, vous venez d'assister, vous venez de voir les 2 premiers épisodes de sa nouvelle série Flack, mais vous la connaissez depuis très longtemps. Vous la connaissez bien évidemment depuis La leçon de piano. Après, vous l'avez redécouvert dans plein d'autres œuvres cinématographiques et télévisuelles, X-Men, True Blood. Je ne vais pas commencer à vous faire sa carrière, elle va parler avec vous. Je vais d'abord accueillir sur scène Renan Cros, le journaliste spécialiste télévision qui va effectivement l'interviewer. Merci Renan d'être avec moi. Et on va d'abord accueillir sur scène la productrice, Cerise Larkin. Please welcome Cerise Larkin. Thank you, Cerise, for being with us tonight. Le scénariste Oliver Lansley. Ah oui, non, c'est bien. Je mesure mes effets. Et enfin, Anna Paquin.
So, we're going to do this in English. On va faire ça en anglais. Donc, si vous voulez mettre votre casque ou si vous comprenez mon anglais, très bien. So, we're going to do this in English. Hi, guys. So happy to have you here. This is quite a show that just in the first 2 episodes. This is like big to take. So, how would you define Flack? How would you sum up what they're just going to watch?
Well, Ollie created it, so I feel like it's his turn to get to say what it's about.
Thanks, bud. I think the starting point for Flack was wanting to investigate the sort of world of PR, which I think over the last few years everyone has become a lot more familiar with. You know, firstly from we all PR our own lives every day by Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, but also I think in, you know, across the world over the last few years with everything from what's been happening in Europe, in our country, and Brexit, which is ridiculous. But the power of kind of PR and how that's had such an impact on global situations, I think we're all a lot more aware of the power of it. And it was something that I wanted to kind of play with, but also the fact that it's very accessible. We all read those magazines and we watch those people on television. So yeah, it was something that was quite powerful but also accessible that made me want to kind of delve into that world.
Yeah, this show undercovers the upside world of pop culture. So we have to know, is everything true, what we saw?
Everything is 100% true, yeah.
Really? You have to give us names.
No,
Absolutely not.
None of it is true. It's all... Everything
Inspired.
is inspired by true stories that I've heard. But when you kind of take these stories and then you look at sort of what that says about us or what it says about culture, and then you try to sort of twist those stories to say, you know, to show what they can show us about Robin and the other characters in the show. So they're kind of seeds of ideas, and then they develop into something that hopefully works on the show.
Hannah, how would you define Robin?
Well, I mean, my sort of go-to is that she's an expert at solving everybody else's life problems, and she's absolutely disastrous at solving her own. What I think is really interesting about her as we continue to grow and learn and have little bits more from her private life is that you learn that she's a child who grew up in a household where the only parent was mentally unwell and was unstable, and those kinds of households tend to breed children that are very good at sort of walking on eggshells and trying to do the right thing, to say the right thing, to keep the parent on the even keel, which is a survival tactic if you're a child of that household, but also happens to make her exceptionally good at her job because reality is whatever it needs to be on any given day for her. But she's had that like hardwired into her DNA since she was probably conscious of any thought.
You're a North American actress. How does it feel to be in a pure British TV show?
I'm a Kiwi-Canadian
Canadian, yeah.
actress living in America, married to an Englishman, and in business with Cerise and her also English husband. So I'm not really sure I get to claim sort of North American status on that front. Also, I feel like Kiwi humor and English humor match up in a much more sort of a dark, twisted way. So that was actually kind of paramount importance to me that when we decided to make Robin from America, I was like, but you have to justify that I still get to say all the amazing lines, because that's why I want to do this.
Do you think you could have made this show in America, all of you?
We did sort of.
We developed the show for a little while with HBO, actually, in America, and that didn't quite pan out, and we're so pleased that that didn't work, because what happened then was we ended up making a version that was transatlantic almost, in that we have an American show, a British show with an American protagonist, and that seems like the very best version of what it could be to us. So this whole progression has been for the right reasons.
But I also think that, especially sort of even in just the few years since we first started developing it and met Ollie, the global community has become so tiny that there kind of isn't such a thing as one country or local news, or everything is across the globe in just, you know, a split second.
Yeah.
And so it sort of made even more sense to have a more kind of globally represented work office.
So is it a satire or a documentary?
I don't think it's a satire.
Well, I think there's sort of different elements, because I guess a lot of the pop culture stuff is kind of satirical, but then alongside it you've got the sort of human stories of all the characters and their lives and their relationships. So, you know, and it's quite a tricky balance to get those two worlds, because, you know, as a kind of satire on celebrity culture, in its nature, that you get these big characters and these big stories, and then you're balancing that with kind of the difficulties of day-to-day life. But it's a fun balancing act to
Also,
experiment.
Like the big difference to what I would consider straight-up satire is we're not winking at the audience. We're not. When Robin is perceiving there to be a massive crisis that has to do with some superficial person who made a stupid choice getting into stupid trouble, it is the most important thing in the world, and we are not passing judgment sort of as storytellers on it. We are buying into the stakes of that event, and to me that's sort of where yes, there's satirical moments in it, but ultimately
It's always kind of played for truth and stakes.
You know, we're not sort of going, oh my God, isn't this ridiculous?
I think depending
Except
on
Melody. Melody gets to tell everybody that we're being ridiculous all the time because, well, she's right.
and depending on what side of the Atlantic we're on, we're either a comedic drama or a dramatic comedy.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
So can we say that Flack is the perfect child between Absolutely Fabulous and Fleabag? Because Edina and Patsy are PR.
Unfortunately, I've actually not seen Fleabag yet. I'm a little bit behind, but I hear, amazing.
I haven't seen it yet, but I do know Phoebe, and she's amazing, and she's incredible, yeah.
I feel like Absolute Fabulous, as much as I actually thoroughly enjoyed it at the time, was kind of farcical in a way that is not really what we're going for. I get the comparison, obviously, but...
Robin could have been the child of Edina and Patsy, a more contemporary child with more disturbance.
Yeah,
it's a prequel.
I don't know. I mean, I always feel like comparisons are sort of weird for me, because also I feel like we were creating our own thing. We were doing something that's completely our own project and our own show and our own vision, or Ollie's vision that we then thankfully got to bring to life.
Even though Robin is not a really nice person, we have to relate to her.
Yeah, people aren't really nice.
Yeah. So
I think real is the word. She's real.
She's real, yeah. So how can we relate to her? What does she teach us about reality?
People are not, morality is not black and white. People's choices are not, every single one does not define every single aspect of them as a person. You can, on one hand, make some incredibly questionable choices and turn around and do something that's incredibly kind and compassionate. And that exists within the same person. And I believe that what's beautiful about the way that Ollie's written these female characters is that, unlike a lot of TV and film, we're not requiring our women to be all good or all bad all the time. There are those shades of gray, and I think that just, to me, that makes people likable, because it's like, well, okay, well, you're perfect all the time, and then I check out. Or you're only bad all the time, and then, I kind of check out too. You know what I mean? I think it is that fact that she lives in a gray zone that makes her inherently likable, because people will be like, you know what? Yeah, there was that day where I did that thing, and I'm not proud of it.
Yeah.
But that's life. That's being a human.
Oliver, you talked about Tony Soprano and the Difficult Men. It's a book about the baddest guy on American TV, and you said that we are lacking of American women bad characters. So my question is going to be a little bit strange. Who's the baddest, Walter White, Tony Soprano, or Robin?
Ooh. Well,
who's the difficult?
Well, the body count's higher. Oh, hold on. How many people overdosed on meth?
Well, I think
Sorry, it's not funny.
Robin, even if Robin was the worst, she'd convince you that she wasn't. So
She's got a better spin doctor.
So, do you agree with Oliver that we are lacking some really complex, bad, mean actress? Complex female
Real.
character.
Yes, I do.
Why? Why do you think?
Why do I think that?
No, why do you think we're lacking?
Because this is a patriarchal culture that has been run by men for centuries and centuries, and women have been relegated in all kinds of ways into very specific boxes. And, you know, finally we're kind of going, sorry, bored with that.
I think one of the many reasons we were so excited to make this show was because the women don't apologize for who they are in this.
Yeah.
Which you don't see very often.
Do you understand that it could still be a little bit provocative to be like that? And what was the response in the UK, the show, when the show gets released?
The response in the UK has been, I mean, pretty spectacular. I mean, I know you're not supposed to read reviews. We don't care. Obviously, we don't care. Of course we read reviews. We're the producers. We've read all of them. You know, also it's interesting to see how things land. And honestly, I would say above and beyond, the UK audiences have been exceptionally like, not just accepting, but like loving accepting, which, you know, you never really think that's going to happen with any show. You think there's going to be sort of a bit of a mixed bag, but it's been incredibly positive.
Yeah, the show deals about pop culture and the way stars has to sometimes hidden something in their life. Do you, as a star, agree with that? That stars has
I thought I would choose a room full of 300 strangers to share all of the things that I don't tell you about my real life, because I've had a publicist since I was 12, so let's face it, I could have murdered people and you wouldn't know about it. Although, for the record, my publicist would very much like to clarify, she has never cleaned up a dead hooker in a hotel room.
But do you understand that
of course.
this society has to be...
But also, that's any job.
Yeah.
That, you know, you don't want, I don't care what you do. Like if you're a high school teacher and you go to some friend's birthday party and sing drunken karaoke, do you want pictures of that for your students to see the next morning? No. I mean, it's on a bigger global scale when you have one of these weird jobs like I do, where you're in the public eye. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with picking and choosing what you want different people in your life to know. I mean, put it this way, it's like, does every single person in this room tell their parents every single thing that they ever did and exactly where they were that night that they said they were having a sleepover or just going to see a movie? I mean, you know, we all...
Yeah.
It's part of human nature, I believe.
Yeah, but as an actress, there's a sense of, you know, a role model in the way you work. Sure. So do you think stars has to be a high level of morality, or it doesn't care at all?
Look, I hold myself responsible for parenting my own children, for waking up in the morning feeling like I have done ultimately more good in the world than bad. I cannot take responsibility for every single other person and what they see and what they make of the work I do. I can't control if somebody allows their 10-year-old child to watch True Blood, which, by the way, does happen when small children come up. I love you as Sookie. I'm like, what? Like, you know what I mean? So I try to conduct myself in a way that moving forward, because we're in such an age of documentation and media awareness, that there is a chance my children will at some point, be able to hit something into Google and find things out. But also I have no problem with explaining why I made different choices at different periods of time in my life and why that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It was just a grown-up thing. Yeah. But yes, I do think that if you're in the public eye, there is more focus on it. But yes, but it's again, I can't control how other people are raising their children.
Yeah, through your movies and series, we saw you grow up. Is it that always easy to be someone everybody knows?
I don't know any other way.
True. Yeah, and do you sometimes feel a little bit overwhelmed by the audience and the publicity and everything?
When I was little, yes. I was a very shy child, and I found it very scary. But I had very protective parents. I had a very protective publicist.
And is Flack
but now I'm an adult, so it's different.
Yeah, is Flack a therapy about that?
Nah.
No?
Flack's just fun.
Yeah, it's a really fun show. It's a really pop aesthetic. You use split screen. Can you tell us about how is it made? Where did you shoot the show, and how did it work, the editing?
Yeah, well, we shot the show in London, and I think one of the things that we really wanted to try and capture was how quickly this world moves. It literally, a picture goes up on Instagram and then suddenly someone's picked up it here, it's retweeted, and these people are literally on the phone their whole time, and so you're trying to figure out a way of making people being on their phones the whole time dynamic and visual and exciting. So and obviously they're not always in the same place because they're fighting fires, so you're trying to find interesting and dynamic ways of, there's one of my favorite sequences with Robin is where you literally follow her, and then one moment she's on the phone to her sister, and then she's in a taxi, and then she's at the next, and it just never stops. So that was very important in the way it was shot, and also with the way it was edited to keep that pace going. But the phone calls are a kind of interesting one as well, because they're shot in split screen. They were shot in real time, essentially.
So basically, one person would go first and would have, like, let's say Genevieve, who plays my sister, and I have a lot of phone conversations. So let's say we'd record her half of it first, film it, but I'd be off camera, someone actually on the other end of the phone doing my half of it. But then, so then when it comes around to do my side, we'd pick which track of hers, and then I would go away and rehearse with her track so that I could actually match up to the performance that we had created together. Because one of those things that gets, I think, a bit overlooked in filmmaking sometimes is that you have two people on the end of the phone. If you have someone who's not the actual actor reading it, you don't know what their performance is going to be. And it's why sometimes it sounds a little bit a bit wooden, Yeah. But we really made a very, very conscious effort.
It was very impressive as well to have these long phone calls, and Anna's then suddenly getting the timing exactly right.
But that's also because you especially sort of with casts like this where we became so close, you learn each other's rhythms and each other's sort of intonations, and when they're like, there was one bit in particular that I found really funny where she's talking, oh gosh, I'm not sure if we're up to this episode yet, but she's talking about something to do with nursing and her nipples feeling like pennies that have been flattened at a machine. And she obviously can't see me because I'm on the phone, but I was starting to laugh without it being audible. She's like, don't laugh at me. And I'm not even sure if that was scripted. She could just tell that I was starting to laugh at her. And it's, these sort of
more real.
Closeness. And that was something production-wise we were very meticulous about.
Yeah, I mean, the split screen worked so well because it was planned very, meticulously.
This split screen reminds me of Jack Bauer. Is Robin the new Jack Bauer of PR, pop culture?
God, I hope not.
She has to struggle a lot, actually.
No disrespect to 24, but there really can't be that many crises that involve the same person.
Yeah.
The plausibility
You're
factor.
tougher than Jack Bauer.
No, I just mean at some point, Robin's going to get fired.
Yeah. Do you think Robin is a victim of this world, or is she like a persecutor of this world, this pop culture frenzy world?
I don't think she's a victim at all.
No.
No. Of anything. I mean, I think she's been through a lot of grief and a lot of trauma in her life, but I also don't identify that that makes you innately a victim. I think that it makes you who you are, it makes you a survivor, it makes you a fighter, it might make you a bit of a disaster to be in a relationship with, but I don't really associate those with the sort of victimhood.
Yeah, yeah. It's also strangely a show about grief, and it really fits with the pop culture word and the mask and all the lies we have to face. Let's talk about grieving, and let's talk about this part of this character. Was it the most difficult part to attempt, this grieving, this strange way she grieved?
No, that felt very organic to me. You know, I, for completely different reasons and completely different contexts, have always found that burying myself in my work is how I get through hard times. I either make inappropriate, horrible jokes, which she does, or make myself so busy that I just don't have time to think about it. Not very emotionally healthy, but made it quite easy to relate to Robin.
Yeah, but let's talk about further episode. She's going to be all right? Is she going to be okay?
Well, you'll have to wait and see.
So
it gets crazier.
It gets crazier. It could be crazier.
Well, she's on a, you know, she's sort of both somehow in a sort of tornado or circling the drain, or maybe she's going to just sort of pop back out and be fine. You don't know, but it's certainly not a sure thing, and it is definitely worth sort of tuning in to see. And I'm not just saying that because I'm trying to drum up audiences, but literally because it is fascinating to see how people who are kind of right on that razor blade edge can sometimes pull it all together, and where you see the cracks, you know, because her whole industry is about appearance. It's about putting on the face.
Yeah. Is it a story about someone being a good person, or is that nothing at all with the show? Is she going to be good, actually?
I don't think we need to put it into such black and white terms.
Yeah. She's going to do what she has to do?
Yeah.
All right.